Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Marie-France Berard, and I would like to introduce.
Anita Sinner, hello.
Hello, welcome. Welcome to this info session on the Masters of Education in Arts-Based Educational Inquiry. It's a new program, and we're very excited to share it with you. We hope that in this short session, info session, we can answer, because on the Excel sheet, we were able to see some of your questions. So hopefully we can answer some of those. And there will be a question period also. And you can always contact us also after via email if we didn't manage to cover everything. So let's go on. The Master of Education, Arts-Based Educational Inquiry is a master's program. It is one which is online, 90%, meaning that it's about a 2.5 years program, about 2.5 years to complete the program. 90% of the courses will be online, but there will be one course during the summer, and I will go back on those details, where you do have to come to UBC. So that will be one course out of 10. Without further ado, let's move on. So I will cover in this info session, we'll briefly introduce ourselves. There's an overview of the program, which is about learning with local and transnational cohort of diverse graduate students. You will introduce, of course, the faculty members. We look at the overall program structure, kind of an overview of the courses, very briefly, of course, in the interest of time. Then Calvin will also introduce very important elements, and I'm sure you have questions about applications and the admission overview. And there will be a little bit of time for questions at the end. But first of all, I want to acknowledge that we are on the UBC, the University of British Columbia is located on the ancestral, traditional, and unsurrendered territory of the Halkaninim-speaking Musqueam people. This land has always been a place of learning for the Musqueam people, who for millennia have passed on their culture, history, traditions from one generation to the next on this site. We are committed not to simply acknowledge Musqueam territory, and this is very important to us, but we also need to constantly realize that an acknowledgement is an active dedication to more just, more accountable relations. How can we be good guests on these lands? And as an aside, I am currently in Jojage in Montreal on the territories of the Algonquin nations and Mohawk nations. Thank you. So the Master of Education Arts-Based Educational Inquiry, why this program? Well, first of all, to build networks of relations with students from BC, from across Canada, and to prioritize quality thinking with and around the arts as a space of pedagogy, inquiry, and scholarship. Anita, please.
Well, I think you just, Marie-France, beautiful introduction. Thank you for that. Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about looking at art as research and art as inquiry. And what does that then constitute? How does that take shape? When does art become research? And how are the many different modes and methods and approaches that we can bring to widening some of the debates that we have underway in relation to our situated knowledges, how we live in relation to. So those are some of the theoretical foundations that are always swirling with me in my head as I've spent over 20 years working in art as research. So this is quite exciting to propose this cohort and to have the opportunity to potentially learn as we may with this scholarly community that really takes up theory, methodology, practice as an embodied, immersive enactment. And that's a different way of thinking about research. So there's a great opportunity here, whether it's visual, literary, performative, digital, AI, all of these attributes and all of these different qualities and qualifications, as you've noted, in terms of how we come to our work. So back over to you, Marie-France.
Thank you. So as Dr. Sinner was pointing out, we expand the scope of a graduate program. That it's not just people who are trained in the arts, visual arts per se. It could be poetry, narrative inquiry, the various ways of thinking. How through your own pedagogical practice also, how are you also thinkers? How are you also engaging and thinking with and through the arts? So the concept of inquiry is one of a stance, an approach, not necessarily just thinking about research as going in a laboratory and having a research protocol, but really thinking about this stance and this way of thinking and wondering and questioning with and through the arts to always improve ways of thinking, of being in the world and within your own work. So the program is located roughly, it's based in the UBC. It would start in September 2026. It's a 2-year and 1-term part-time program. So for us, the part-time is important because we know that many of you are working. So we do take that into consideration. How can we be relevant to you? How can we create those spaces where you can be involved theoretically, cognitively, in the whole being, while at the same time, and we recognize having other responsibilities as well. So the modality of teaching, we use Canvas, which is an online platform. The courses would be mostly asynchronous, meaning that they're modules that you engage with, but there's always also, depending on the faculty members and the instructors, like for me, when I'm teaching, there's always a weekly drop-in session or dropping, online, I would say office time where people come in if they want to, and we talk about the readings. So there's various modalities, but overall it's asynchronous because we understand again that we have students, graduate students who would be all over the country, different time zones. So it's asynchronous, but there will be one face-to-face. And there was a question in the Excel sheet, which is, yes, you would have to come to UBC for that particular summer. It's about 10 days, roughly. Correct me if I'm wrong, Anita, but it would be around 10 days where you would have to come to UBC. All different we have some facilities. We do have residences at UBC campus. The details would have to be ironed out, but you would have to come to UBC. So the program is designed for currently practicing artists, educators in the arts, teachers, elementary or secondary, college, university, community educators as well, and of course, museum educators. Close to my heart. I'm a museum educator myself. So we are looking for professionals from national, international time zones. And the application deadline, remember, April 1st, 2026.
And I'll just jump in very quickly about the face-to-face. That's our opportunity to study with a artist who will be leading us in a studio-based inquiry. So it'll be a very exciting and dynamic experience. So not all of it will be online. So the opportunity to come to campus, and it is a beautiful campus, will be in fact to participate and engage with an artist in residence.
Thank you. I'm so looking forward to that.
Me too. It's going to be great.
Yeah, that's the pleasure of doing these wonderful programs. So we get to live it as well. So some of the program outcomes, so upon the completion of the degree, we think that being able to critically analyze visual, literary, digital, performative theories and discourses of learning, teaching, and research inquiry, but also being able to address certain historical contexts, that inform approaches in arts-based inquiry and research and methods and practices, being able to assess how certain arts-based educational inquiries and practices are taken up with rigor within the context of education. So when we're thinking about curriculum and those spaces, how can we think of education, the fine arts and humanities, health and sciences and beyond? And how can you create connections with your own interest. And that is very important to us as well. We think that the program is open enough for you to be able to create connections with your own professional practice and interest as well. So demonstrate in their inquiry and practice questions of relation, EDID, so being equitable and diversity and equity in relationalities and convergences. So that is also at the core of everything that we are teaching in this particular course, thinking about equity and justice and diversity and inclusivity, and how we can articulate those implications for our role as educators. And then also, how can we employ arts-based inquiry in professional practice, in institutional and communities and personal settings? So those will be roughly some of the program outcomes. Anita, anything to add?
I love what you just shared, because I think that encapsulated the intention and the values and the beliefs that I think we bring to this, which is very much around your local situated knowledges as the site of your inquiry. So what you do matters. The stories you are matter. And that's what we're going to work with in relation to theory and methodology. So the practice is what we want to encourage. And that practice can take many, many different forms and from many different fields of study. And I'm glad you have health sciences on there, because nursing is a really important area for art as research, as are, of course, education and arts and humanities. So we're spreading quite rapidly. This whole area of inquiry is spreading. So I'm excited about that. And I think that's sometimes where we find the most interesting conversations. They actually come from when we come together and we share different interests, but we find our commonalities and we can facilitate the conversations from there. So I'm quite excited about that.
Me too. And then Anita, perhaps you can share a little bit about you.
That's me, a little out of focus, but there you are. Yeah, so I think this is a nice little summary for, essentially the work that I've been doing for a very long time. At the moment, I teach 3 arts courses. So one is called Artwork Scholarship, that's happening this term, where we look at a survey of all the different approaches to art as research, everything from arts-based educational research to research creation. We also teach an artography course here, and actually here is the textbook. I've just been working on it for next term. This is the textbook. It's a hefty textbook, but it's a really good textbook. And this is the essential readings for artography. And artography and a number of different approaches are really what made UBC a hotspot for art as research historically. So we're in, at about the 25-year mark now for this work happening here at UBC. We had pioneering faculty. We had Rita Irwin, who just recently retired, Carl Lego, Peter Gazousis, who's still teaching in music, George Bellevaux, among many others who have been doing this work and really laying the foundation stones upon which this program is built. So that's part of our academic inheritance as a hotspot of this work around the world. And there are other hotspots in Australia, in Spain, in Finland. These are where the research has really accelerated, and UBC happens to be one of those places. And that's one of the reasons we're able to take up poetic inquiry and stories as research and in part because we're building on that foundation. So there's a great wealth of knowledge here, and also the kind of learning environment where this work is embraced, and it fosters that generative engagement that we were so fortunate to have all of these years. So this is where this group is hopefully going to be able to continue those conversations.
Thank you. And as for me, on my background, you have time to read it maybe later. My training is in art. I'm an art historian from the University in Montreal. I worked in art museums as a museum educator and coordinator of teams of educators. So having also administrative positions and once being on the floor as well with the visitors. So I did museum education for about 25-ish years, both at the Musée d'Art Contemporain in Montreal and then coming to the Vancouver Art Gallery, because after the Musée d'Art Contemporain, I came to UBC, where I completed my PhD. And while completing my PhD in art education here with Professor O'Donoghue and Dr. Rita Irwin and Dr. Pina, I was also working at the Vancouver Art Gallery. So those are wonderful formative years, extraordinary years. Museum education and mediation is always close to my heart. But I'm also teaching and working very closely with art educators and teacher candidates and graduate students here at UBC in thinking with and through the arts, theoretically, conceptually. And Anita, if you want to introduce some of our colleagues.
Yes, absolutely. Donal O'Donoghue, who is currently an associate dean in academic and graduate studies. His background is around contemporary art, aesthetics, curatorial practices. Certainly a well-respected, well-known international scholar, and does a lot of work with in relation to gender and gender issues. So certainly Donal would be part of this cohort. Would you like to introduce Shannon? We'll go one.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. And Shannon Leddy, who is our wonderful colleague, whose work comes from SFU, and her work is around indigeneity and visual art education, and she looks at historical perspectives on colonization and how we decolonize spaces in the world today. Really dynamic, like energy, and just a lovely presence. And our newest member is Dr. Garnett, who is come to us, was with me at Concordia many years ago, and it came to us from Cal State, and is now joining us here at UBC. And his areas are quite expansive also in terms of the histories, the living histories of art education, as well as looking at spatial matters in terms of the ways that we construct and live within spaces. Also works in the area of digital media and AI. So we're going to have some exciting directions happening there. And all of our colleagues have really remarkable records when it comes to their presence in the field of art education. But we're not just art education. I think that's what's really important to note, is that all of us work in transdisciplinary, transmedia, transnational spaces, and that leads to some very interesting ecozones, as Carl Lego was always fond to say, and how the really interesting work starts to happen when we overlap and we share and we get into those kinds of spaces. So this gives you a very good profile of what everyone's doing, and yeah, it'll be wonderful to meet them.
Thank you, Anita. So if you're thinking about the overall structure, think of practice. So inquiry is a stance, inquiry as practice, it's a scholarship also, methodology, thinking with and through studio explorations. Think also there's a zone of specialization, because you will have a discipline focus, in the sense you will, in your capstone experience, graduating paper, you focus and hone in on your own interest, generating that space of rich thinking and connections. And there's, of course, some curriculum issues. So there will be content, there will be the vocabulary, the concepts, that ethics and concerns and issues that we work with throughout the course. Online courses, 90%, as I mentioned. So the platform is Canvas, asynchronous. So what are the pedagogical modalities then? If it's online and not necessarily a set time every week, where there's discussion boards, there will be some guest speakers, there's some group work. Yes, there will be a little bit of that, but we manage, there might be some group work, there might be some drop-in sessions, something which I personally love to do, drop-in sessions. I usually have 2 a week at different time zones, so we can discuss the readings together. They're just about 1 hour. And then there will be some individual meetings to catch up also on the readings. What you see here is a little bit blurry. I'm going to have to look at my the quality of my images, but this is just my desktop or my computer of Canvas. Anita, you want to say more with the in-person?
Well, yeah, in fact, maybe a little bit about both, because I think
Okay.
the online courses are so flexible. I actually quite like online courses, and I think you do need to be somewhat self-directed when you take on online courses, in the sense that, there'll be mini talks or PowerPoints, and this is how I structure my own courses, is that I provide a lot of background information. So whether you're on campus or you're off or you're online, you would find on Canvas, a PowerPoint, a recording of that PowerPoint, a whole variety of media links to illuminate and expand upon some of the concepts that we're dealing with, perhaps in each module, so that there's a way that you're always kind of, moving along with the ideas, so that there's no kind of lockstep, but it's actually about the movement of the ideas from week to week to week. And that's where the discussions are really lovely. And, none of this is compulsory, in the sense that you don't necessarily have to come to a drop-in session, but the drop-in session is there for you if you wish. But it's nice to create that community. So I like to do some teamwork as well as individual work, even if we're online. So that would be one of the things that we do. I do a lot of COIL projects with my in-person classes, so that would be another thing I would continue on in the online forum. So COIL is collaborative international learning, and so it's in teams, and you learn online together, and you do a module, a project. So for example, next term, we're going to look at sustainability of campuses, and we're going to work with a group in Turkey. And so our two classes will work together on their own schedules, so that they can fit it into their lives. And we'll inquire about the question of sustainable campuses as one of the course themes. So that's an example of how, even when you're online, you can be working within a community of inquiry and practice. And I think that's really important to have that in addition to your individual work. So I'll ask you to go for a walk and to work with public art. Go for a walk with public art, and let's see what happens when we start to think differently with the world around us. So that's an example of the online. The in-person, as you can see, there's some fantastic photos, beautiful photographs, Marie-France, of our campus. Yes, 1.5 weeks approximately. So we'll do some hands-on studio work. We're going to look for guest artists to be joining us and leading us in the inquiry. And this is where you might do some visual journaling. You might do some work in the different labs that we have, like we do some textile work. We might be doing some ceramic work. And then of course there's a series of on-campus galleries, and there's walks with public art on campus. So there's a guide that I would certainly ask you to have a look at and have a wander as you're here on campus. And we're situated right on the peninsula in Vancouver, so we're not too far from the downtown. We're not too far from seeing the sights of Vancouver, and I would certainly encourage you to give yourself an extra couple of days and really enjoy Vancouver. It's a beautiful city. So over to you, Marie-France.
Well said. So here's a list of the program structure in terms of courses. Of course, the schedule itself is subject to change, but it gives you an idea of the kind of seminar. So year one, you start with, usually you have one course per semester. This is what we recommend, one course per semester. And then there's also the spring session, and there's a summer session. So usually about, four to five courses per year, and then there will be the graduating paper after. So let's say we start with artwork scholarship, surveying artwork scholarship, and the turn to art as research. You would have EDCP 520, which is looking overall at the landscape of big perspective and curriculum issues in contemporary art education. Very broad, but gives you a sense of the lay of the land. And then with Dr. Sinner in the winter term, artography, arts-based research as lived inquiry. And then the summer of July 2027, we would have the in-person studio sessions. And then possibly also you might want, you do have electives, so you can select some electives. And then it's a possibility for you to do that in the summer also of 2027. And then year 2, continuing with curriculum issues and theories, which is part of every program. Every master's program must do the course in curriculum issues and theories. You would have also with Dr. Leddy, Indigenous Visual Expression as Pedagogy, looking through and thinking with contemporary Indigenous artists. And then Education 500 is about research methodology in education, also a mandatory course in every graduate program. And then we would invite you also to take another elective, probably during the summertime. Or of course, if you have some sessions where you not happen to be working. But this is just to give you a guiding, an idea. And then in the final term would be the graduating paper. Or you could decide also decide to do an elective. Anita, would you like to say a few words on this graduating paper?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the graduating paper can take a number of creative forms. So we really do think outside the box. So you can do a traditional final paper, which, you know, is essay format, if you will. And it's about often an inquiry into a topic or an issue or your own artistic practice or your teaching practice. And so it really does focus on that experiential knowledge. And so that can take, again, many different forms. I would encourage you to think visually, poetically, with stories, and many different forms that you could bring to bear on that, particularly with media. So, for example, in the class that's underway right now, I have a student who's just a brilliant comic artist. And so I'm encouraging the student to think about their final paper as a zine. Like, could the whole paper be a zine? Okay, what would that look like? How could we make that happen? And I think that kind of generative space is really what we would like to see in terms of graduating papers. And you know, yes, you do need to take the 500 research methodology course, but it's a good foundational course. And I would say everybody should have, you know, kind of some baseline courses. But then we do the creative. Then we get into the work that's really calling to you. So again, that can take many ways, shapes, and forms. In terms of papers we've seen previously, I think Marie-France, you should maybe mention Dennis's work with visual journals, which was amazing. That was just gorgeous, gorgeous work. That's a very fine example of a final project.
Yeah, absolutely. We can give you, in due time, we can give you a lot of examples
Yeah.
once we get there. And so if you wish to contact us, please do not hesitate. You will have in the recorded video, you will have our email addresses of Dr. Sinner. You can call myself. And now, without further ado, I think that maybe we can keep some of the questions for the end. I would invite our colleague, Calvin, to continue and to take the stage. Take the stage for all other very important aspects of this program. Thank you very much, everyone.
Hello, can anyone see the shared slides?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Hi everyone. We'll now go over the admissions and application information for this program. So for the application requirements, all students must meet the admission and application requirements of both the Faculty of Graduate Studies and the program. And these include, firstly, a 4-year bachelor's degree in education with at least a 76% average for senior level credits. And when we refer to senior level courses, these are your 3rd and 4th year level courses. But please note that this GPA is not a hard cutoff point. So in special circumstances, if you do not quite meet that GPA, but the rest of your application is still considered strong enough, the application review committee may submit a special case rationale to recommend you for admission, regardless to our graduate studies. And note that in special circumstances, teacher education may be waived if you have sufficient standing and also experience related in your proposed field of study. Normally, 18 credits of senior coursework or a professional concentration in arts-based educational inquiry is required. And normally, 2 years worth of teaching experience or other relevant professional experience within schools, communities, business, government, NGOs, or other education-oriented environments. But please note that these application requirements, as I said before, these are not hard cutoff points. So if you don't quite meet everything that's listed, but there are other aspects of your education and professional experience that's able to compensate, we would still encourage you to apply. Additionally, you will require 3 letters of recommendation. So these are your typical reference letters. And these reference letters would be from educators or supervisors or colleagues, basically people who are able to speak to your ability to complete a graduate degree or can speak to your interest in art-based educational inquiry. You also be asked to provide a resume or CV. And please note that this is a CV for the purpose of applying for a graduate degree. So there is no need for yourself to limit to only 1 page. It can be as minimal or as complete as you deem it to be, to showcase the full extent of your educational and professional experience. You'll also be asked to upload a statement of intent, maximum 600 words. And this is a great chance for you to make the case on why you are a good candidate of the program, even if you don't quite meet any of the previously mentioned admission requirements. So this is your opportunity to make your case, basically. And also we'll be asking you to provide scanned copies for all your official transcripts and degree certificates. There was a question submitted earlier on if you have withdrawn or dropped out of a particular university, whether official transcripts are still needed. So as long as you have completed credited courses there, even if you didn't finish your degree, or even if these courses were taken during like an exchange, or if they were only like transfer credits to like your main degree, we will require the official transcripts as well. And for applicants from a university outside of Canada, where English is not the primary language of instruction, you have to provide results of an English language proficiency test as part of your application. And tests must have been taken within the last 24 months at the time of submission of your application. So please note that if this applies to you, you have to take the test before you apply for the application. If you apply, but your test results are pending, your application will not be processed until you receive the test results. So if this applies to you, the QR code for the web page is on screen right now. I will pause for roughly 10 seconds for you to open up the web page if you need to. Moving on. So regarding the actual application procedure, everything is done online. There's no way for you to apply in person. So even if you show up at the office and ask for assistance to apply, you still be redirected online. So you navigate to grad.ubc.ca/apply/online. Simply click apply online, and you'll be prompted to either log in with your CWL or create a CWL if you have never attended UBC. So CWL stands for campus-wide login, and it's basically your login for anything UBC online related, including your courses, your schedule, library resources, and everything else. Once you have logged in, under degree program selection, you type in professional cohort. So it's important to search for professional cohort because it specifically relates to the part-time program rather than any of the regular on-campus programs. It's not uncommon for people to accidentally apply for the wrong program. And when that happens, you'll be forced to reapply due to a system limitation where we cannot just switch a person's application to another degree. The program would not allow us to do so. So yeah, you fill out the rest of the application as indicated and click apply. And afterwards, you'd be asked to upload all the necessary supporting documents as we have just covered previously. And please note that once you are actually admitted into the program, you will then have to provide official sealed transcripts directly to the Faculty of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies. Please note that if you are a UBC student, you will not need to do this step. However, if you are a UBC alumni, but you have also attended other post-secondary institutions, you will still be asked to provide the official transcripts for the other post-secondary institutions that you have attended. A quick word on your academic references. So when adding your references to your application, you'll be asked whether they are professional or academic references. And we do understand that not every applicant is able to obtain academic references. Perhaps it's been a while since you did a degree or program. So in those instances, we will allow all professional references as well. You're strongly encouraged to submit electronic letters of reference, and you will do that while applying to fill in the email addresses of your 3 references. And references with free web-based email addresses, example at gmail or helpmail.com, as opposed to something like at ubc.ca or at whatever school district.ca. If you use a free, no, if your reference use a free web-based email address, they will instead receive a link to a paper form, which they can then print out, fill in, and mail to our office. For everyone else, once you submit and pay for your online application, your referees will automatically receive an email with a link and instructions for completing the electronic reference form or the link to the paper form, as stated above. So if your reference would like to both fill in the form and upload a fully typed out reference letter as well, that is okay. Just please ensure that if they're choosing to upload a reference letter, that the reference letter covers all the questions that the form is asking. Moving on. So yes, again, in cases where your references are unable to submit an electronic reference, either because they are using a free email address or if that's what they prefer, a sealed and endorsed reference letter may be sent by mail. And when that happens, it's very important for your references to include the program code or ABE2 when they're submitting the paper reference. And all references must arrive in a sealed envelope with their signature on the flap of the seal. So basically for if there's an envelope and the flap is like this, their signature must cover the flap. And this is to ensure academic reference fraud, which has happened before. And yeah, for those choosing to submit the paper reference, please send it to the listed address right here. The same address will be provided in the instructions that your references receive. So regarding the application deadline, the application is currently open and accepting applications. You can apply as early as this evening if you want. The application deadline is March 15th, 2026, with the document deadline being March 29th, 2026. If you
I just want
believe,
to, sorry, Kelvin. So I made a
Yeah.
mistake in my own slides. Please disregard my slides. Kelvin has the correct information. In my slides, I had April. I'm so sorry. It's March 15th. Apologies.
Okay. But yes, if you believe you're unable to meet whichever of the listed deadline for whatever reason by maybe like a few days, it's important for you to let us know. Usually accommodations or extensions can be made, but that's only if you let us know in advance. So regarding tuition, the tuition for this program is listed right here. Graduate tuition is assessed as an annual program fee, which is divided into 3 equal installments due at the beginning of each academic term, starting in September, January, and May. Is payable over a minimum of 7 installments. That is one for each term of the program. And in the rare case that you exceed the minimum number of term, let's say you know are running into some bumps in your graduate paper and maybe you need an 8th or additional term, there will be a continuing fee of, I think it's roughly $800 per additional term. Tuition is charged as a whole program fee and is not assessed on a per credit basis. So this basically means that regardless of whichever number of courses you end up taking during your degree, you will always pay the same total minimum tuition at the end. So even if for some reason you have transfer credits from another unfinished graduate degree, and you transfer into this program, and you end up taking less courses, you'll be paying the same exact tuition. Similarly, if you want to take additional electives for your own personal interest or personal development, it is still the exact same minimum tuition. So we have had cases where a student does the minimum 10 course and then take another 10 electives for their personal interests or personal development. That is completely okay. You'll be paying the same exact tuition. Tuition may be raised by up to 2% annually. And if there are any increases, it will be announced in spring of each year. There was a question submitted earlier on whether someone is allowed to pay their total tuition in one lump sum at the very beginning due to currency exchange reasons. Yes, that is possible. Any tuition that you quote unquote overpay will stay as basically a credit on your student account. So if you overpay in the beginning for all subsequent terms, it will just be deducting from the credit that you already paid. Regarding funding eligibility, since this program is part-time, it is not eligible for traditional student loans or other types of funding. However, if for some reason you're able to secure your own third-party funding, or maybe your school district is running a funding program that doesn't care if the program is part-time or not, then in those instances, that would be okay. So on top of the tuition, there'll be student fees charged on top of it, which varies from term to term. You're budgeting for approximately $800 to $900 extra, on top of tuition per term. However, most of these student fees you are able to opt out of, and I would encourage you to do so if you do not make use of any UBC services. And other examples of fees that you can opt out of include the medical and dental plan if you have your own coverage. And for people who live outside of the Greater Vancouver area, you can opt out of the U-Pass public transit pass as well. So as mentioned earlier, fees are subject to change annually, and only information in the UBC calendar is official. So here I have the QR codes for both student fees and U-Pass fees. So I will just let the slides sit here for now for everyone to pull up their phones. And if you have any additional questions, you can also type it out in chat and we will cover it at the end as well. Just going to give everyone a few more seconds for the QR code. Moving on. So this concerns teachers in the Vancouver Lower Mainland who have taken UBC students in their classrooms as student teachers before. So if this applies to you, you might qualify for a tuition credit, basically. And if this applies to you, you can contact the teacher education office at teacher.ed@ubc.ca. Off the top of my head, I believe if you have taken UBC students in your classrooms as student teachers, you are entitled to roughly 0.5 credits worth of tuition credit. But yes, if this applies to you, contact the TEO office and they will sort it out.